It seems endemic to the profession right now. If you speak to enough orthodontists, that the overwhelming majority of orthodontists that I speak to are not joyful in their day-to-day work. And so I'm seeing a lot and hearing a lot. So I made the decision that I'm going to make self-care and wellness a very large part of this podcast on a regular basis. Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Orthopreneuers podcast. Today, we got a special guest, comes to us straight from Austin. Well, actually, he's in Dallas right now, not with me, but he's from Austin. Please welcome David King. Welcome, David.
Hey, guys. Thanks, man, for having me.
It's really a pleasure to have you here. And full kudos to one of my favorite people on the planet, Dr. Jeannie Moody, for connecting us. And I think other people in the profession know you, because I remember when she mentioned your name, someone else seconded it. But as you're all going to learn today, this is a man that many of you really should get to know better. And we'll get into why in a little bit. But David, if you don't mind, like I always ask, if you can start by telling everybody a little bit about who you are and how you ended up where you are right now.
You know, my standard speech, it reminds everybody that I'm a farm boy from Muldoon, Texas, and that I'm Muldoon, yes, population guess, that kind of thing. And
population differs every day.
Yeah, exactly, that kind of thing. And I'm a product completely of supportive parents and personal development. And that led me into athletics and management consulting, and then I got into some fitness and wellness and longevity, and that led me to life coaching. And then I decided to combine all three and bring the wellness and longevity and life and business coaching together. And then I decided to work exclusively with orthodontists. And I met Jeannie and worked with her, and she was just a fantastic human being, as a lot of you I'm sure know. And so I get to do this every day. I work one-on-one with orthodontists in their offices, and have a dynamite time doing it, helping with their physical well-being and their mental well-being.
It's beautiful. And yeah, Jeannie's one of my favorites on the planet. I could just give Jeannie a hug all day. She's so genuine and so amazing, and she's taught me so much. And that's for another time. And I've interviewed her, and people have heard how much I really care for her. But let's talk a little bit about what you do, because for many out there right now, they're thinking, oh, consultant, this guy's a consultant, but that's not what you do. And I just want to preface this by saying I've had a chance to speak with David a little bit and learn about him before this. And let me tell you, folks, even though he's not an orthodontist, he's wired exactly like all of us are wired. Okay, you should all know that this is a guy who could easily have been in one of our residencies with us, but he understands us really, really well. And I think that's important. And so let's start right there. I'm an orthodontist, which I just so happen to be as well. And I hear this guy, David King. What is it that you could do to help me? Why would I want to? I guess there's two questions. What is it you do specifically? And why would I hire you? Why would I want to work with you?
So it's interesting that you mentioned the word consultant, and there are consultants out there that do fabulous work and for what they do, and they in helping orthodontists build their business, refine their business, grow their business. And there's an element of what I do in that direction. But what I do is more coaching, in that I start with the doctor first. And so when somebody is struggling with something in their personal life or in their own mind or with their business, and they call me, my first step is to ask, where are you at? What are you up to? Like, what does your self-care routine look like? What do your relationships look like? How much sleep are you getting? What does your food look like? Are you getting in any movement? Irritation, angers, that kind of thing. So you can get a full picture of what do you have to give in the tank, and is your tank empty? And so when we can get to some of those points, we can start a foundation to help to build that back to, to what most people might call self-care, because we all forget, and we're out there, doing the deal, carrying the message, bringing joy to people's lives. And we just have a tendency to forget about ourselves. And then we start to think like, what's wrong with us? Am I broken? Is it ever going to get better? Where's the joy? And, that's a tough spot to be in, especially when you've checked off all the boxes. The world says, hey, if you do this, happiness is at the end. And then, a lot of times we just find out, well, there must be something else.
Yeah, I agree with you. And one of the decisions I made with this podcast not long ago, specifically after an interview I did with Robert Trujillo. Anybody here who hasn't listened to that podcast, if you're listening right now, I encourage you to please go listen to that podcast episode with Robert Trujillo. He's an orthodontist out of Washington State. He realized that just getting up and going to the office wasn't as enjoyable as it should be. And he actually went back, became a life coach, and really sees it from, again, a different perspective. Like I said to you before we got on this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
there are so many great coaches out there, and there's so many people coming from so many different directions that I personally will probably have another 10 coaches in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Because I've had coaches. I have one now. You will probably be my coach at some point, because we've got many masters. But it seems endemic to the profession right now. If you speak to enough orthodontists, that the overwhelming majority of orthodontists that I speak to are not joyful in their day-to-day work. The stresses of post-COVID workforce, the changes to the world in general, looming economic downturns. They're working shorthanded all the time. It's interesting because millennials, as I'm sure you're aware, are the first generation to come into the workforce that don't expect to be in the same job for the rest of their life. And yet here you have people who've spent $3, $5, $7, $900,000 on an education and have been sold a bill of goods that they're going to work the next 30 or 40 years. And then 15 years into it, they realize, well, wait a minute, I'm not wired to work in the same thing for 30 or 40 years. And maybe I made a mistake, but I've got this sunk cost bias. I put all this money in and all this time. I can't turn around and change. And so I'm seeing a lot and hearing a lot. So I made the decision that I'm going to make self-care and wellness a very large part of this podcast on a regular basis. And bringing people like you in, I think, is important. And so when you start working with orthodontists, can you talk about, if you're okay with it, what are some of the kind of, you talked about the type 1 driver, A personality, you told me you were a decathlete, right? Beforehand, you understand this type. What are some of the warning signs that you typically see from people who definitely should be talking to somebody when they're this type of personality type, right? Because you and me and probably 95% of the people listening right now, our attitude is, or was, if we're not practicing really good self-care, I got here by brute force. I can work through anything. There's nothing you can do to get me down. This problem, I'm going to double down and work harder on it. I'm going to push my way through this, right? So what is the most common warning sign you see that if someone out there is seeing these things, they should say, hey, time out. I shouldn't push harder through this. I need to stop and maybe seek some help here.
There's a few things that happen. And one of the major ones is you'll notice that you are having to force yourself to feel gratitude. In other words, if you rolled out the scroll of everything that you have in your life and said that you weren't grateful to somebody, the tomato cans and things would start flying, or at least that you imagine in your head. But with all this stuff, the blessing and charm life that we live, doctors will start to feel this lack of gratitude, even though they should be. And and then there's this feeling of chronic dissatisfaction that sets in, where they see, it's very, very difficult for them to see the joy and to see the blessings. And there's more irritation with themselves, with their staff, with their families, where they wouldn't normally be like that. And then they, in their mind, because they've been trained in their mind their whole career, they're like, I just need to, be, more kind, or I need to be more conscious around my kids, or I just need to be a better parent, or I really just need to listen more. And like, I'm going to fix it, right? Like teeth. I make this analogy all the time. So like when you're fixing teeth, it's like, perfection is the model. And so that's just what you do. And so you get in there and you fix it. And so this is a little bit more of a moving target, and it's a little bit difficult to pin down, especially on your own. And so there'll be, a team that you love, but you're feeling some resentment towards them, like just stuff like that goes on in your head. Like you said before, you're in the parking lot and you think, gosh, I really don't want to go in there today. Those kind of things, or then, one level down from that, God, what's wrong with me? That's the kind of stuff that runs through somebody's head that has, let off the gas pedal on the self-care, and is like, reach out for somebody that can help sit down with you and get some of that stuff out, and then move forward with, like what we're talking about earlier, to look at the divine vessel, right? That's carrying around that magnificent, brain and experience and skill, what you're feeding it, how it's recharging, what's the sleep level like, a
Right.
morning routine of some kind. Like, somebody asked me today, well, what do you think about journaling? And so I was telling them about journaling, and, they had that look on their face. And I was like, look, if you're not excited about it, then don't do it. It's like, what works for you? And so we'll
God
find
bless you.
something that, we'll find something that works for you, that you're excited about, that you look forward to. Something I'm doing right now, and you could probably second this, and most people would, is that we're our harshest critic. And people will say that, like, I'm my harshest critic. And my experience is, doctors have not even a smidgen of a clue how harsh of a critic they are in their own mind for their lives and their actions, in that, trying to, raise a family and be the best doctor and be there for the team and accomplish things for themselves, and how much that goes on. And so personally, right now, I listen to a 21-minute forgiveness meditation every morning about forgiving yourself and forgiving yourself. And it seems a little hoity-toity, or however you want to say it, but things like that serve me, and they work, and I look forward to them, and they excite me. So that's what I do. So that's what I try to coach people to find in their lives, is things like that can help them to come back to. And you know this, Glenn, they intelligently, they know that there's an amazing human being with a message and a soul in there that impacts the world. And it's just in a little bit of a pit. And so we help each other to climb out of it.
Oh, you said there's so much wisdom in everything you just said here, David. Like you just hit like 5 incredible points along the way. The two that resonated with me, one was very obvious, which was the harshness with which our profession, not just orthodontists, but dentists are built that way, oral surgeons are built that way. Almost anybody in the dental world who's been through dental school is that way, because we've been trained in cutting. You were graded an A versus an F. As my dental school friends and I used to joke, you went from an A to an F with 0.5 millimeter, right? If you cut a prep that was 1 millimeter deep, or whatever it was, you got an A. If you cut it at 1.5 millimeters, you got an F. And so we're so harsh on ourselves, and we just got to cut ourselves breaks, which I've become much better at doing for myself as I've gotten older, but I'm just as guilty of it. And the second thing you said that just sort of light bulbs just went off in my head when you said it. And you said, when someone's warning signs are just, if I could just do the word just, like, just, if I could just do this, if I could just do that, to me, that always screams survival. If I could just do this, if I, like when you're, hey, everybody out there, what you don't know is in about 2018-ish or so, 2017, David was Austin's fittest man, right? Was it 18?
2018. Yes, it was Austin's fittest contest that I won. Yes.
Yeah. So, and this is not like he showed up with 11 guys who had chicken wings in their hand. This is a guy beating Division I track athletes. You're talking about a very fit man here in front of you. So, no matter how much you all work out there, this guy understands you. And, that last mile in a marathon or a half marathon, or that last 500 yards of open water swim, or whatever it might be, you're saying in your head, if I can just get through this, if I can just hammer down, if I can just get my stroke rate up, whatever it might be, you're trying to survive, you're trying to finish, trying to get there. And when you start using those kinds of things on your day-to-day activity, right? There's just an hour and a half left in the day, right? There's only 6 patients left. And if you're an orthodontist listening to this and you've never said that in your mind, you haven't practiced long enough, right? And so I love what you say about that, about, the just. And so first of all, everybody out there, if you see the warning signs, please reach out to me. Just, hey, Glenn, I was listening to the podcast and I find myself saying those same things. I'll connect you to David. I'll connect you to somebody. But, if
somebody.
Number one is, if you're suffering from those sorts of signs, I'm going to go on a limb here and say there's a mental health issue going on here, right? Just like if you said, I walk up a set of stairs and I'm out of breath, there's a fitness issue going on. If you find yourself not giving the gratitude, like David said, if you find yourself saying just a ton, if you find yourself beating yourself up all the time or being dissatisfied with the people around you, there's a likely mental health issue. I didn't say you need to go into medicine or anything crazy that might be necessary, but you should check in with yourself and say, something's not right here. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would, and it's and again, to be clear to the A drivers and the, the people who get a lot of satisfaction and joy out of accomplishment. Certainly, I do too. It's not as if it's a pretty bird, pretty bird kind of thing. It's
Petey?
Petey. Yeah, you got it.
You sold the blind kid the dead bird?
Yes,
Anybody out there gets the reference, you know what we're talking about.
it's it is action in a direction of self-love, not just I can wish myself better, which is kind of one of those things that is almost like fixing, right? Like I'm going to go do as much as I can to get better versus I just need to practice more self-love and forgiveness. Because what happens, Glenn, is that what I've noticed is that they'll go from one extreme to the other. In other words, a worthless piece of poo over here in their mind. I've certainly been there. You've got that, I'm a piece of shit, thing in your mind. But then they'll go all the way across the spectrum to, I need to give myself grace. And so they give themselves so much grace that there's no lesson to be learned. There's no different action to be taken. There's no set of habits that you install. There's no recognition of the lack of self-care. And so somewhere in that middle is where people find what you might call the truth.
That's
What
awesome.
do I need to face? Not a criticism, but what are the facts about what I'm doing and not doing, so you're not spun out in some narrative that's taking you down into that hole.
I just want to jump up and be like, amen. I just want to, because like these are the things I want to be clear to everybody out there. I've got a long way to go. I got lots of work to do on myself. But everything you're talking about is stuff that I try to practice, because what you just basically said in a simple analogy, if I understand it, is, you come home from work after a hard day, you eat an entire bag of M&Ms. And I'm not talking a small bag. I'm talking the family sharing size. And we've all been there, right? But you sit down on the couch, you finish it. And then when it's over, you say, well, I had a tough day. I owed myself this. It was a tough day. As opposed to saying, wait a minute, what was it about today that caused me to want to sit down? Why do these M&Ms bring happiness to me? What did I just go through? What did I just learn about myself that maybe I can take a lesson from and go from what I feel, what I present with, what I feel, what emotion am I feeling, into what was my reaction to that emotion, into how did I feel afterwards, right? Like, and again, I don't want to steal your thunder, but that's some of the work that I've worked on. And I think that's what you're saying is, if you give yourself all the grace to go, well, I had a mom come in today and scream at me, and it was a tough day, and I was working 3 short, and that's why I came home and kicked the dog, or that's why, I'm giving myself full grace. What did you learn? Where did you, as opposed to the difficult task, which is really difficult for people out there who've been through it. And it's an ongoing process, is to slow down and stop and analyze and say, okay, what happened here? Why did it happen? How did I feel this way? What did it make me do? And how do I turn my physical and my mental into one, so they interact with each other, as opposed to just going all to one or all to the other? And am I getting that right in any way for you, David?
And I'm with you. And the way I see it, it comes in the form. You may have heard this in a different way, but people get into change-worthy pain. In other words, right in the middle is what you call tolerable mediocrity. It's where it's not really what you want, but it's not so painful that you start to consider change.
It's like the food on a Royal Caribbean cruise.
Yeah. Is that how it goes?
It's
yeah, right
exceptionally mediocre.
Exceptionally mediocre. And
Yeah.
then you get to change-worthy pain, where it's like something has got to change. And that might be the night where you come home and you eat in a way where you just had enough. I'll give you an example in my own life where I was telling you earlier too, I had this AFib issue going on, and I knew I was going in to see some doctors, and I've had it handled, by the way. They did an ablation. I feel like $1 million, like Pinocchio became a real boy. I'm fabulous. The doctor said it went perfect. But leading up to it, I got irritated at a workout one time because my heart went into AFib, And I thought the next morning, I'm just going to stop drinking caffeine. I don't know that the doctor's going to tell me to stop drinking caffeine, but I'm just going to stop doing it. Now, you're talking about somebody who's had caffeine for 30 years, pretty much every day. And I just was like, you know what? I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to do it today. And I didn't swear it off forever. I just said, I'm just not going to do it till I go to my doctor's appointment in 2 weeks. And so I didn't. And now this is in May. So now I'm running up on 6 months of no caffeine for the first time in my life. And so I was in change-worthy pain. Something in my mental
Yeah.
and psychology was ready for me to make a shift. And then I took it. Now, if you'd have told me at the first of the year that I'd have gone 6 months out of this year without caffeine, I would have said no way. But people, if you stay open to that point on, and you start asking yourself those questions, you can get to those triggers, like you said, where you look at what's happening before the event. In other words, what you will find is that lack of personal integrity is not workable in life. And so somewhere during the day, we're making promises that we couldn't fulfill. We're over promising and under delivering, especially to ourselves. And so we break these promises. And then there's some event that it's like, how did that happen? And whenever I coach somebody on this, I always like, you got to tell me everything that led up to this. Like, how did the day go? Who did you talk to? What was the thing you said you were going to do that you didn't do? So that we can get to that and face those facts and say, what will we do next time? Because a lot of time it's not even about the M&Ms or whatever it is that somebody may choose to eat. But yes, facing the facts and telling the truth is the pathway to healing anytime, every time.
Yeah, and as we learned with Robert Trujillo when I spoke with him, it also comes to facing the facts about maybe when you made a bad career choice. Maybe you went into ortho for a whole variety of reasons, and you find yourself miserable. And sometimes it could be a function of your life events of where you are now. But figuring out why you're unhappy with any purpose in your life is essential. And I really appreciate the way you're coming at it. Would you agree or disagree with the statement that self-care is holistic, meaning everything, right? It's sleep, it's eating, it's that we need, if we're going to have true self-care, it applies to all aspects of our lives, and it means being mindful about it at all the time. Would you agree with that? Or would you say there's a true statement, a false statement? Or do you say both of those are true?
Well, listen, I would say 95%. Like what you just described might be called monkish, by some people, where but to have 100% commitment to protecting what I like to call the divine vessel, right? You've got the body that's carrying the mind, and to have that on point most of the time. In other words, it's very rare to find somebody who's just 100% anti-inflammatory eating. They meditate every single day. Like, it's just how they roll. Like, for me, and this is interesting, and some people might find this for themselves, I am not intrinsically motivated to do almost anything. I just am not. I have to have some sort of extrinsic gamification that pulls me forward. And so a lot of times people try to change themselves from this all or nothing personality to somebody who's more of a moderate, and they just keep themselves miserable instead of leveraging their madness into their greatness. Where it's like, hey, how can I take this and move it into something where it can take me to a place where I can get that joy or that serotonin or that dopamine, as opposed to chasing it down the rabbit hole. But to your point, I would say that it is a shift, and it is a commitment to you say, you know what got me here will no longer get me here. Like, the drive and the survival skills, I'm knocking up against this ceiling. And this is the struggle that I'm feeling every day. This is that governor on my joy, on my happiness, on my freedom. I have got to make a shift to go to that next level. And 9 times out of 10, it is exactly what you mentioned, that commitment to better nutrition, movement, your sleep recharge. We all wear, a lot of us wear these trackers. You've got the Whoop, I've got a Polar Grit. So I know my autonomic nervous system and my sleep cycles. And it fascinates me because, now that I'm almost 50, the longevity is a big part of my game. I'm not eating to win contests anymore or running, up mountains. It's like, I want to live a long time for my kids and be,
Exactly.
what do you call agile and mobile to chase around my 10 and 12-year-old.
Yeah. And again, I love what you say. The word I used before was very deliberate. Wasn't necessarily be on point all the time, but to be mindful all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm
Yeah.
having a couple of extra drinks today, but I understand this isn't the best thing for my fitness, but I'm being mindful about the idea that I'm not just guzzling drinks without thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
I'm being mindful about just giving some thought and being conscious about everything you're doing. Was a huge awakening for me with my coach that I work with. And to me, what's interesting, and I think you're getting to an age where I got to a few years ago, where all of a sudden, the old saying is you're on your sunset, you're not on your sunrise anymore, right? The sun is not going up, the sun is going down, and we recognize that. And I want my longevity, I want my flexibility, I don't want to live to 90 and then drop dead of cardiovascular disease, metabolic disease, all the other things that go along with it. I want to, ideally, you'd like to live to 90 or 95 or 100 or whatever that might be and live a fulfilling, wonderful life, going to ball games with your great grandchildren, right?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to them coming to visit you in the nursing home, which I think is what we're all trying to strive for. But what blows me away is people, and I was there, and it took a mind shift. But the people who will do a triathlon or do CrossFit every day or work out really hard, and this is not aimed at any particular individual, so I don't think I'm talking to anybody in specific if you're listening out there, and then drink like a fish, or eating red meat and taking down huge levels of saturated fat in other ways throughout the entire week, or I'm proud to go on 5 hours of sleep a night or 4 hours of sleep a night, right? Like The Rock. Which we won't even get into that conversation right now about him being so proud of 3 to 5 hours a night. And people always say, Glenn, do you ever sleep? And I say, yeah, I don't need 8 hours. I sleep really well, with 6.5 hours of sleep a night, 6 to 6.5. And I don't deprive myself. And what's the common thread, if you found one, among why people who are A drivers, who work out like fiends, or eat really well, or sleep really well, don't practice self-care in other places of their life? Is it lack of knowledge, or is it just lack of willpower in that, or lack of importance? What do you typically see there?
Yeah. For one, if they're enjoying their life and they love it, and that's how they live their life, and they're choosing that freely, and they're not, complaining about how they feel or what's going on or damage or any of that sort of stuff, then, do your thing. However,
can I play devil's advocate with that one?
Yeah.
Because if they are happy, right? Again, I'm not going right or going left in this one. Yeah. I'm staying centrist. That's who I am. Yeah. But Dennis Prager used to have this great saying. He used to say that I learned when I read online one time, which is would you rather have your children be, right? Rich, happy, successful, or good? Right. And good was the answer because it's the only one that's inherent. It's the only one that you can, you can't. It's hard to train that, right? Like your kid could be successful, but a drug dealer, they could be happy, but 700 pounds overweight. A good person, and you can debate this, has a lot of different values that are beneficial. And my point here is, if someone is not taking care of themselves, but they're quote unquote happy, it isn't there an inherent necessary need for us to help them understand, hey, time out. I know you love eating barbecue 4 days a week, but if you continue down this path, you may not realize you're not happy until the doctor says you need an angioplasty today.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's good to have this conversation on podcast so that somebody who might not have even expected it can get this message and look in their life in a different way. Because to me, the answer is the same for both points, which is we carry narratives in our head about who we are. And we are who we tell ourselves we are. And so if I'm that person and I believe that over and over again, like this is where I'm at, this is making me happy, then this is a behavior that I will continue to run into until there's some sort of realization or there's some sort of pain or there's some sort of awareness. Now that may be hearing our voice on this podcast today. That may be your example of, the need for an angioplasty, but the destroyer of stories that are keeping us unhealthy or unwell or mentally down in a pit is facts, and it works every single time. It works in a business, it works with your body, it works with your sleep charge, is to look at the facts. Like, this is a very interesting thing that you mentioned about this 6.5 hours is what you need, and people have debated this for years, but now since they have these sensors and they can measure it accurately, you can see that in 6.5 hours I'm the same way. I can get 5 sleep cycles. Well, that's what I get my 5 sleep cycles. I get my deep sleep. I get my REM sleep.
You get your
And so
27% in REM.
and so that is what my body needs to go. So when people can find that out for themselves through measurement and through data and through facts, so that they can destroy those stories in their mind that they've, usually somebody else's voice. They've got somebody else's voice in their head that's pretending to be them, that's kind of molded into their ego. Like, this stuff goes super deep, on what drives us and our behaviors and and so I'm on a constant mission of evolving and unraveling that, so I can understand things as well as I can, so I can, live an optimal human existence. I get the same from, what you're doing and what you're working on your, with your coach on there too. But yes, the facts will get to that story and what that looks like. The flip side of that is typically when people are ready for change. And so sometimes they need somebody, to tell them to their face, hey, look, stop making excuses. This is why you're overweight. This is why you've got health problems. This is like, I'll get there on, I'll go on Monday. That's why you're still in this position. And they need that person in their face to tell them that with grace and with kindness and with firmness. And they need that. And that's what they need to make a shift in their life. And so, coaches will often know what that person in front of them needs, like a push or a pull or a message, or where that's going, because they've asked for help to go down a certain direction. And, people, almost everybody here, I'm sure, has had a coach where they helped them go down that path. And some people respond better to that face front. This is what needs to change in your life to get where you want to go and to have what you want to have.
Yeah. The old saying was, the people who need the help the most don't recognize it, right? Like, most of the people in orthodontics, thankfully, are pretty receptive to coaching and help and what have you. And, the interesting thing for me, particularly, again, the last 2 to 3 years for me have really been almost an epiphany. Like, there's so much I've learned about myself in the last several years. Most of it unhappy. But as I've learned and dove down the rabbit hole, there are so many things out there that are coachable to a human being that I didn't even know was coachable. Like, we all would agree, you want better performance at work, you want to become a better clinician, you can get a clinical coach. You want to run a faster mile, you can get a running coach. You want to eat better, sure, Weight Watchers, coaching, like, that's been around forever. You want a fitness coach, you got that. Even a therapist could almost be viewed by many as a mental coach, right? But the things that I didn't even know you could coach that have had the biggest impact in my life are things like how we react to people when they talk to you, right? That I'm going to use an analogy here example that people will get is you walk into the office and that Debbie Downer assistant that you have says something to you in the morning, and all of a sudden you're angry, you're pissed about it. It's carrying you through. Now the morning meeting isn't as good as it was because you're thinking about her and you respond back in a snappy way, right? And you don't realize that you can coach yourself out of that. There's a way to actually, and not just that, but that patient's mother who's really upset with treatment, but you did a gorgeous job and you're reacting in a way that maybe you shouldn't. And I didn't realize that those were coachable things, which all fall under the guise of learning a way to understand what makes you feel a certain way and not reacting like the tape recorder in your head has had you react for the last 20, 30, 40 years. And I would tell everybody out there, if you agree with this, that could arguably be one of the most impactful parts of your life, because that's going to manifest itself in how you respond to your children, how you respond to your loved ones, how you respond to your patients, how you respond to your team, and could very well be that missing link of the positivity, the culture, the leadership, the vision, the mission that you're lacking in your life. Am I wrong there, or would you agree with that, David?
Oh, I agree with you 100%. This is the way I describe it and some other people may have heard it put this way too, is that you say you have outlets all over your center mass, and a lot of them are covered. They have those covers like the kid covers, and some of them are open. And when somebody hits one that's open, you might refer to it as a trigger.
Oh yeah.
And it's something that hits you. It's a word that gets to you. It's a tone that gets to you. Typically something that has happened to you, younger life, adolescence, early 20s. And it's something unresolved in us that gets triggered, that takes us to a level of irritation that is not appropriate to the situation of somebody we're watching behind the smoked glass. And so you're to understand those and to learn those triggers and to see what it is in us that we can dissolve or unravel or get okay with can completely dissolve that in a life where, you know, it might have existed for years. And I've experienced that. It's changed my entire world around my parenting, around my relationship with my wife. Like that is a definitely that next level of mental awareness and understanding that allows more joy to flow into a human being's life. It's, you know, especially those that are in those high achieving, super busy type of lives, that still allows space for that when those triggers get resolved.
Yeah, and we see it so clearly in other people. Like we see it, if only you can see it all the time in everybody, and we try to help them. Hopefully, as I know we wind down a little bit with time here, I want to.
Yeah.
You said something way, way, way a while
Okay.
ago, which I think was wonderful. Which was whatever morning routine you want to get into. That's
Mm-hmm.
great. What works for you? Because like Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod.
Mm-hmm.
Huge amounts of conversations about and as orthodontists, we tend to say, well, I do this, I do this, and I do this, I do this, I do this. And I tried the Miracle Morning for a month, and it was cool for the first day, and then two, and then three, and then I realized some of these things don't work for me. Like they just don't. And and it took me years, but I have my morning routine, right? I wake up, I do a little meditative breathing or exercises in my head. We're talking 5 to 15 minutes. We're not talking hours. My ability then to get ready for the morning, do my pre-workout, get into my workout, have my break, my snack, my breakfast, whatever it is. Like I have my routine. When I'm out of my routine, I'm a little out of sorts. And so it was really nice for me to hear you say that there is no set routine. The routine is the one that works for you. And as part of your coaching and helping
Mm-hmm.
people, do you help them develop those routines to get them in the right direction? And how do you uncover? Do you just try a bunch of
Yeah.
things and get feedback about what worked and what didn't?
Sure. So I call it prepping the asset. And so we're all our number one asset. Like everything emanates from us. And so you've
I
got to
like you,
prep the
David.
asset in some way. And it really gets back to, Dr. Stephen Covey, where whatever it is, it's between you and a life that you're responding to versus reacting to. And so if you're leading a reactive life, like you could just say hello to stress and angst and irritation and frustration. So whatever you can prep that asset with to get that window. Sometimes I just have doctors sit in their car for 2 minutes and set their intentions for the day on what they want for themselves and their team. Like just start simple. But yes, start a conversation with what have you done before? What have you enjoyed? Because a lot of times people have done something that they totally enjoy. They just stopped. And then they just got going in a different pattern. If I'm sure you've heard or followed Tony Robbins at one time, and he talks about human beings being walking patterns, right? If he's learned
Yeah.
anything in 40 years, we're just walking patterns. And so to find out what it is that they did that they enjoyed, and then add in some atomic habits where it's like, look, maybe you're not ready for 20 minutes of that right now. Let's prove that we can do 4 minutes, 7 days in a row. And then we go to 5 minutes. And so that kind of conversation really helps people to, find out what it is. Sometimes people just like to get up and go for a walk in their neighborhood, before the sun comes up. Or some people do like journaling, or they do like guided meditation. Some people like silence, but yes, having a conversation about that on what's worked before is typically helpful. And then I can offer things that I've seen work for other people, and we try things. And some things people are like, no, I get it, I understand it, doesn't work for me, don't like it. It's like, okay, we'll go to the next thing.
Yeah. I appreciate your message so much, and I appreciate your positivity because I love being around people like you. I love your movie references, which are great. But, and not but, my
Either way.
mission, well, in this case, it's an and. My goal is really to help people just stop and think for just a minute about where they are so that they can reach out to professionals and get the help they need. And,
Mm-hmm.
and my soapbox recently has been self-care and spending time on yourselves, because
Mm-hmm.
I know how stressed orthodontists are right now. They are. I've been in dentistry for 30 plus years. I've seen my share of ups and downs. And right now, people are stressed. They're stretched to their limits. And yet, I see people who are truly stretched from 5 a.m. until 6 p.m. when they walk through the door of their house. They are on. They are not
Mm-hmm.
going off. And there's this added pressure, and this could be an hour-long conversation with you and me on the added pressure that people feel unrealistically from social media. And this weird sort of, this is how I should act. And I know people who are literally almost hanging on by a thread, who come home from work after 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours of being there for everybody else, and then say, well, now I'm going to play with my kids for 3 hours, 4 hours. Like, I know you want to play with your kids, but don't buy into the narrative on social media where everybody shows every picture of the children doing every single thing, that you need to come home. You need time for you. You need to recharge the battery. You need to put on your oxygen mask before you can put it on for somebody else. And if every day you're coming home from work at 6 o'clock, wolfing down dinner, and then playing with kids for 3.5 hours and not getting any time for yourself till 10 o'clock at night, there's an issue there. And I'm just telling everybody out there, I know the life you're going through because I've been there. My 3 kids are older now, but I had twins, and I know what it's like to have to be a parent. And I'm begging you, if the more you think you don't need this, the more you probably do. And whether it's David or somebody else out there who's a professional, if you don't know anybody, reach out to David. And he'll be honest and tell you whether or not it's a good fit. But if they want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, super easy is david@leadersinortho.com. So that's you can email me, very easy, and get in contact me quick there. Even easier is leadersinortho.com. So you can go there and you can set up a call with me. And I, just like what you said, I have no intention of getting involved in a situation where I'm not the one to help. So I can refer help, or I can guide somebody in the right direction, but I just have a conversation with people to see where they are and if it's something that they might want in their life. But those are two easy ways that people can find out more about me.
That's awesome. David at Leaders in Ortho?
Ortho.com.
Not orthodontics.
No, just ortho. Leadersinortho.com.
It could apply for orthopedists too. You could be a leader in orthopedics if you want to, right? Just ortho. But that way you'll remember now. It's David at leadersinortho.com. And again, my plea to everybody out there is, number one, find time for yourself to just self-care. You got to. You need this. It's imperative. And I'm going to use a word that I don't like, which is deserve, but you deserve to be happy in this world. And you can help build that. And it's people like you, David, who are helping our profession in a huge way. And I just really, really, really hope that this message hits home with people. And they're going to hear much more of this as time goes on from other directions. But is there anything you want to add before we end this?
Yeah. It doesn't have to suck. And you've got one life. Like, if you're struggling, like, handle it some way, somehow. Like, it's you can ask for help. You can get the help. Somebody that has been through a struggle. It's time. Like, don't waste another day. If you're going, sun up to sundown, holding up that Atlas ball all by yourself where nobody understands, it's super lonely. Like, it's time. You're at that ceiling.
Yeah. And I'm going to even add to that, just a spec with your permission. It's not just if you're sad or something's not working out. If you can perceive that you could live a better life, you could be happy right now. Like, I'm really happy. Like, I don't come home from work ever unhappy. I mean, I get unhappy at times over things, but I have a great life. And I've got so many places to work on. I could lose a little bit more weight. I could be a little more fit. I could be a better father. I can be a better spouse. I can be a better son. Again, I hope many out there are hearing this and saying, if you find a spot in your life where you could do better and it's important to you, you can go there too. And so,
I'll say that too. Let me just second that right quick. Is that really is the next level of living? Once you get that release, then it is the commitment you talked about earlier to the next level of you. Right? What is that evolution? What does that next piece look like? What could you resolve or learn or become? That just is it's a magnificent joy. So I'm behind you 100% on that.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And so can't wait to check back in with you somewhere down the road, David, so we can do this again. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. And again, for everybody out there in the profession, if you have any problems or questions, reach out to me. Of course, I'm always here for you. I'm going to add to this, please. If you don't mind reviewing the podcast online, wherever you're listening to this, Apple, Spotify, wherever, just if you don't mind giving a review to it, to the Orthopreneurs podcast, that would mean the world to me. But if you have a problem, an issue of any kind, come to me. You can reach out to David at leadersinortho.com, or just go to leadersinortho.com and check it out. And I want to be clear here. I have no financial involvement whatsoever with David. I want to be transparent. If you ever become a client of his, it has nothing to do with me other than me being remarkably happy that you're living a better life. That's the name of the game, because Orthopreneurs is about helping orthodontists lead the most profitable, lowest stress life. And David is the kind of guy that can help you get there. And so thanks again, David.
Thank you, Glenn. Yeah. Really appreciate it. Great stuff. Good platform for a super message. Yeah.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.